the lady or the tiger? A long time ago, there was a semi-barbaric king. He had very barbaric ideas. Any time he had an idea, he tried to make it reality. When things went well, he was calm and happy. But when things went badly, he was even kinder and happier because he knew he would soon have a chance to force people to behave. One idea he borrowed from his more civilized neighbors was a public arena where he could show his subjects the right way in life. But even in the arena, his ideas were barbaric. The arena was not built for sports or debate, but to determine people's guilt or innocence. This big theater, with its galleries and passages, served as a place of justice. Here a crime was punished, or goodness rewarded, following the rules of impartial and incorruptible chance. When one of the king's subjects was accused of a significant crime, the public was invited to the arena. When all of them had arrived, the king gave a signal. Then a door beneath him opened, and the accused person walked into the arena. On the other side of the arena were 2 doors. They were exactly the same and were side by side. The person on trial had to walk directly to these doors and open one of them. He could open either door he pleased. He received no guidance or influence but that of impartial and incorruptible chance. If he opened the one, out came a hungry tiger, the fiercest and most cruel that could be found. It immediately attacked him and tore him to pieces as a punishment for his guilt. When this happened, sad bells rang, great cries were heard through the arena, and the audience walked slowly homeward, mourning that someone so young and fair, or so old and respected, should have met such a terrible death. But if the accused person opened the other door, a lady came out, the most beautiful that anyone could imagine. The accused man then married this lady immediately as a reward for his innocence. It didn't matter if he had a wife and family or that he might love someone else. The king didn't care. The marriage took place immediately in the arena. Another door opened beneath the king, and a priest, followed by a band of singers and dancing girls, moved to the pair. Then the 2 were married, and the bells rang happily. The people shouted glad hurrahs, and the innocent man took his bride to his home. That was the king's semi-barbaric method of administering justice. Its perfect fairness is obvious. The criminal could not know which door contained the lady. He opened the door he wanted. He didn't know if he would be devoured or married. Sometimes the tiger came out one door, and sometimes it came out of the other. The decisions of this court were not only fair, they were final. The accused person was instantly punished if he found himself guilty, and he was instantly rewarded if he was innocent, whether he liked it or not. There was no escape from the judgment of the king's arena. The arena events were very popular for the king's people. When the people came together on one of the great trial days, they never knew whether they would see a bloody death or a hilarious wedding. This element of uncertainty made people very interested. People were entertained and pleased, and the deep thinkers of the community could not call this plan unfair, for did not the accused person have the choice in his own hands? This semi-barbaric king had a beautiful daughter who had a similar personality to her father. She was the apple of his eye. He loved her more than anything. His daughter was in love with one of the king's subjects. Her lover was more handsome and brave than anyone in the kingdom, and she loved him passionately. This love affair continued happily for many months. until one day the king found out. The youth was immediately sent to prison, and a day was scheduled for his trial in the king's arena. This was an especially important occasion, and the king and his people were greatly interested in his trial. After all, this was the first time that a subject had dared love the daughter of the king. The king searched far and wide to find the fiercest tiger in his kingdom. He also searched for the most beautiful lady. Of course, everyone knew that this young man was the daughter's lover. He had loved the princess, and neither he, she, nor anyone else denied that. But the king would not think of that interfering with his trial. No matter how the trial came out, the youth would be taken care of, and the king would pleasure in watching whether or not the young man had done wrong in allowing himself to love the princess. The day finally arrived. People came to the arena from all over the kingdom. It was so crowded that people even gathered outside. The king and his court were in their places, watching the two doors that were so terribly similar. Everything was ready. The signal was given. A door beneath the king opened, and the lover of the princess walked into the arena. Tall, beautiful, fair, his appearance was greeted with admiration and anxiety from the audience. Half the audience had not known such a handsome youth lived among them. No wonder the princess loved him. What a terrible thing for him to be there. As the youth walked into the arena, he turned to bow to the king. But he did not think of all of the king himself. His eyes looked to the princess, who sat next to her father. From the moment that the king decided to send her lover to the arena, she had thought of nothing else. Because she had more power, influence, and character than anyone else, she had done what no other person could do. She had found the secret of the doors. She knew behind which of the two doors stood the cage of the tiger, and behind which the lady waited. Through these thick doors it was impossible for a person to hear anything. But gold and the power of love had brought the secret to the princess. The king's daughter not only knew from which door the lady would come, she also knew who the lady was. It was one of the loveliest of the ladies in the court, and the princess hated her. Often she saw this beautiful woman looking at her lover, and sometimes she thought her lover returned those looks. Now and then she'd seen them talking together. The girl was lovely, but she had looked at the princess's loved one, and with all the intensity of her barbaric blood, she hated the woman who waited behind that silent door. When her lover turned and looked at her, and his eyes met hers as she sat there, he saw that she knew behind which door waited the tiger, and behind which door stood the lady. He had expected her to know it. He understood her nature, and he knew that she would never rest until she knew the door's secrets. Then his eyes asked the princess his question. Which? There was not a moment to lose. The question was asked in a flash. It must be answered in another. Her right arm lay on the cushion in front of her. She raised her hand and made a small, quick movement to the right. Only her lover saw her. Every other eye was fixed on the man in the arena. He turned, and with a strong and rapid step he walked across the empty space. Every heart stopped beating. Every breath was held. Every eye was fixed upon that man. Without the slightest hesitation, he went to the door on the right and opened it. Now, the point of the story is this. Did the tiger come out of that door, or did the lady? The more we reflect on this question, the harder it is to answer. It involves a study of the human heart, which leads us through mazes of passion, and it is difficult to find our way. Think of it, fair reader, not as if you must answer the question, but that hot-blooded, semi-barbaric princess, her soul burning under the combined fires of despair and jealousy. She had lost him, but who should have him? How often in her waking hours and in her dreams did she wake up in horror and cover her face with her hands as she thought of her lover opening the door where the cruel fangs of the tiger waited. How much more often had she seen him at the other door? How in her dreams she gnashed her teeth and tore her hair when she saw his delight as he opened the door of the lady. How her soul burned in agony when she saw him rush to meet that woman, when she heard the glad shouts from the crowds and the wild ringing of the happy bells, when she saw the priest with his joyous followers come to the couple and make them man and wife before her very eyes, and when she'd seen them walk away together on the path of flowers, followed by the shouts of the happy crowd, in which her despairing cry was lost and drowned. Would it not be better for him to die at once and go wait for her in heaven? And yet that awful tiger, those shrieks, that blood! Her decision was indicated in an instant, but it was made after days and nights of deliberation. She knew she would be asked. She had decided what the answer was, and without the slightest hesitation, she moved her hand to the right. The question of her decision is not to be taken lightly, and it's not for me to answer it. And so I leave it with all of you. Which came out of the open door? The lady or the tiger?